a Russian. Oh, skip Kevin, sorry. Kevin, who was in the video, who is taking Italian. And then Sahaj, who is taking Hindu, right?
No.
Hindi.
Sorry. Hindu is a religion, the language is Hindi.
There we go. I'm very happy that people can correct me when I'm wrong. Why don't we start with Preston? And the question that we saw in the videos were, why is language important? How has it impacted your life? But also, I'm interested to know what do you think it can do for you in the future? Please.
Shall I start?
Yeah, let's. Yeah. Please.
All right.
What? In English, please.
In English?
Yes.
Oh. Man, this whole thing written out in Korean. Oh, wow. Okay. So, all right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Can you hear me? My name is Preston Lewis. I'm a fourth year physics major here at UCLA. And ever since I was young, I thought that learning language was really important because it's a way of like connecting to other people, their cultures, religions, etc. Right? So actually, the whole reason I'm actually taking Korean is actually really interesting because I took Spanish, right? I took through AP actually in high school, sophomore year. So I didn't actually need to take language. So you might be wondering why did I take Korean, right? So actually what happened is when I began school here at UCLA, I was really actually seeking God. So I was looking to sign up to a lot of different Christian clubs, and the club that I actually got really, really into was actually from a church that started in Korea. So I started attending this church, and I started learning about Korean culture, and I started really liking Korean food, and I thought it was really, really an interesting, fascinating country. So I wanted to learn the language too, to be able to even further connect with these people. So I started learning the language from someone at church, and then my third year here, I started taking Korean classes to try to deepen my abilities. So yeah, so I learned that learning a language is actually a way of learning about people's cultures that are different than you. And it's also, I think it's like the best way of actually connecting with these people that are different than you, because there's so many people in other countries around the world that you would never be able to talk to if you didn't actually communicate in their own language. So that's what I realized, and this summer I'm going to Korea for my third time, and I hope to live there sometime in the future. So thank you for listening so well.
Thank you very much. What about you, Juan? Why don't you?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Please.
I think I could just talk. I think that's fine. I wanted to start off with a little joke. So if you speak 4 or more languages, they call you a polyglot. If you speak 3 languages, they call you trilingual. If you speak 2, bilingual. If you speak 1, they call you American. And this is kind of a funny little joke, but I think oftentimes as people who, with English as our native language, we forget that other people speak other languages, because it's becoming more and more common for us to be able to go to countries that don't necessarily have English as their native language, but they spend so much resources on teaching their population to speak English that we can go there without having to speak, let's say, Mandarin necessarily. You'll find people who speak English. And so I think kind of the spirit of this language alliance is kind of combating that. Like, we need to take steps to learn other people's languages. And the reason I think we need to do that is to be able to tell these people that not only to be able to tell them that your language, your culture is just as valuable as mine, but to be able to tell it to them in their own language. And I think that's really what this is all about. So I'm a Portuguese major here at UCLA, and I also do applied linguistics. And how I got into Portuguese is kind of a funny way. I feel like oftentimes how we get into languages is just like, it's, people will ask you this question, you have to really think about it, like how did I start to get interested in this language? And for me, for Portuguese, it was kind of this weird, I don't know if any of you have heard of bossa nova, but it's a Brazilian kind of jazzy music from the 60s, and I had a friend who was really into it. She's like, Juan, you have to listen to this music. You know, it's like, it sounds so similar to Spanish, but it's not, and it's this cool. And so I listened to it, you know, Mr. Tom Jobim, as they call him in Brazil, and I was like, this is great. Like this music, I was like, automatically I pirated Rosetta Stone for Portuguese, and I started learning on my own. But it wasn't until I got here to UCLA that I decided, okay, I came in as a neuroscience major. This was my first quarter. After that quarter, it was like, this is not for me. Like, I don't know what I want to do with my life anymore. So having this kind of like, okay, I want to do Portuguese, and then also having a kind of interest in linguistics, I decided, well, I'm going to take a Portuguese class. I'm going to take linguistics. I fell even more in love with the language. The professors here or the people who were teaching us Portuguese were teaching it in a way that they were able to make it fun. I had the opportunity to actually learn with native speakers of Brazilian Portuguese, which was great. And so within 2 quarters, I decided this is what I want to do with my life. I don't know, you know, or rather, this is what I want in my life. I don't know what I want to do with it, but I know that I want this in my life. And so I made Portuguese my major, made linguistics my major. And here I am today, talking to you guys about why I love Portuguese so much. Portuguese has given me a lot of opportunities that I honestly would not have been able to have otherwise. This past summer, I was able to go to Brazil. I went to Salvador, which is in the northeast of Brazil. I got to speak with the people. I got to eat the food, you know, live the language every single day, and it was great. And so much happened in Brazil. It was, you know, whether it was learning how to samba, whether it was, you know, everything was in Portuguese. I fell in love in Portuguese, and it was great. And I'm so glad that I have this now as a part of my life, as an asset, really. And I'm actually now, I'm so interested, I also, like I said, I also do linguistics, and I'm now doing research on a rural dialect of Brazilian Portuguese spoken in the interior of the state of Sao Paulo. And like, honestly, like, Portuguese is just wherever I go in my life, Portuguese is there, Portuguese is there. So, yeah, that's how I got into Portuguese, and that's where I am today. And, oh, one more thing. For those of you who are not aware, there is a government scholarship known as FLAS. Basically, I think for the year they give it to you to go to other countries, and you get like a $7,000 kind of award. And I was awarded this last year, so that was an amazing opportunity. And for next year, I would have been awarded to pretty much keep doing what I'm doing, $15,000 scholarship to take classes that I honestly would have been taking anyways, classes that are taught in Portuguese and that have to do with Brazil. So, so yeah, you know, Portuguese has gotten me places, and I'm super happy that I've had this opportunity. So, thank you.
I know we saw you in the video, Kevin, but maybe there's something more.
Some more, yeah.
A little bit. We're running a little bit short on time.
All right, sure. My name is Kevin. I'm a third-year electrical engineer and computer engineering major, and I also have a minor in Italian. I gotta thank Professor Tonialti for giving me a chance to share my little thoughts with you and all my Italian friends. Well, actually, so many people have been talking about like how practical or how helpful learning language can be, but I just want to get back to the essence, to the very fundamental thing, what language is. Like, language is beautiful by itself. Like, the enjoyment I got from reading, from learning, and from speaking, like, I enjoyed this whole process so much. And also, you don't just learn language, you learn like the culture, the history, and everything behind the language as well. I didn't choose Italian. Actually, Italian comes to me because one of my best friends was Italian. So I just heard him speaking. I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. I want to learn more about it. I want to speak with you in Italian. So it really comes to me. And then by follow my curiosity, I actually learned so much more. And then I'm actually more willing to learn instead of thinking about, oh, how practical or how helpful this can be. Actually, if you only see language as a tool, well, right now Google Translate is good enough. And then technology allows you to go anywhere without a language barrier, so you don't have to learn it that way. And also, I think we have to look at language in a wider perspective, like not just language like a foreign language. There are also other things like music. Music is an international language. And also computer programming is also a language. And also foreign languages. I think this languages by itself is a mature system. You really change your logic. Like by learning this, you improve your ability to learn something new and then to jump out of the box. So later on in your career, you can apply the experience you learn from knowledge, from the language, and then to learn so much more. So I think you really change your logic. And then I think that's probably the most important thing than just learning a language and then see it as a tool. So, yeah.
I know, Saraj, you have a pretty interesting story. Why don't you quickly share that? Why you chose to study
Hindi?
Yes.
So I'm a physiological science major, and coming into UCLA, I thought I didn't think about taking Hindi. It never came to my mind. I thought I'd take a more popular language. In high school, Hindi is not usually taught, and so I figured the same for college. Like, in my high school, I think we had Chinese, we had Spanish, and I think that was it. And so when I came to college, I figured I'd continue Spanish. I took Spanish for 4 years. But when my cousin graduated from college, she said, take Hindi. When else are you going to get the chance to? And I figured that she was right. When else would I get formal education in Hindi? And so my family's native language is Gujarati, which is not Hindi. But I figured when I went to India, or when I went to South Asia, I would want to be able to communicate. When I went in the past, I would have to stay very quiet because when people would talk to me, I wouldn't know what they're saying, I wouldn't know what to say back. So it was just very awkward, and I want to be able to communicate with people. So that was my reason for taking Hindi, and I'm really glad I did. And here, I thought it was interesting. When I enrolled, it said Hindi-Urdu, and I didn't know what that meant. I just wanted to take Hindi, but when I went into the class, Professor Mahajan was talking to us about it, and it was very interesting. I didn't know spoken Hindi and Urdu are the same language. They have different scripts, though. And so she says, buy one, get one free. I think it's been a really great experience to learn 2 different scripts, and it can enable you to communicate with a bigger group of people. And so that's why I took Hindi-Urdu.
Thanks. Lastly, let's hear from you, Lindy, as a graduate student. Why do you think it's important to have these classes at UCLA? I think you have some thoughts on that.
I was just going to make 2 quick points. That I think, first of all, especially for the humanities and the social sciences, language learning is something that really brings us all together, something we can have some commonality in our research, and that's such an important part of university these days, interdisciplinarity. And we can learn about culture and different research methods all through this approach of looking at language. So I think it's really important for us to protect that these language classes that we have at UCLA, because it's something that really brings us all together in terms of our overall research. Also, I think that a lot of times we assume that everything that's worth reading is translated into English, and I haven't found this to be true in my work. There's a lot of work in German for Slavic studies that isn't translated. There's even stuff in Polish that hasn't been translated that's very useful. So that's something to bear in mind. Even if you're a scholar, you may need it professionally, and also you can meet different networks of scholars in the same ways that our undergraduate students have been talking about their personal and also professional contacts. So I think that's important to bear in mind. And finally, transitioning a little bit to the teacher end, since I also TA, I was talking this morning with the organizers of the freshman clusters, which is all about what the values of teaching undergraduates should be about. And I think that this idea of interdisciplinarity and teaching people to think about different types of methodologies, different ways of thinking, that all ties into the same values that we want to instill in undergraduates regardless of language teaching. So language teaching is another way that reiterates those values and helps students grow. And again, last point, I think we've been talking about both personal reasons to learn languages and professional reasons to learn languages, but I think they're interrelated. Right? If you're developing good personal skills, these are also things that you're going to use in your professional life. So it's not like you have to pick one versus the other as the reason why language teaching is important.
Thank you all, guys. Thank you so much. Please take your folder if you want to trade between each other. That's fine.
Can I make a comment before you guys qualify? I agree with Lindy totally about the value of language study for the humanities, but I'm thrilled to see some of you South Campus by summer man.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Oi, meu nome é Juan, eu estudo português e linguística aplicada aqui na faculdade da UCLA.
안녕하세요. 저는 프레스턴입니다. UCLA 4학년이라고요. 그리고 물리학을 전공합니다. 감사합니다.
Ciao, buongiorno. Mi chiamo Kevin e studio ingegneria e italiano qua. Grazie.
Привет, меня зовут Линди Комсток, я аспирантка на факультете прикладной лингвистики.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम सहज है और मैं फिजियोलॉजिकल साइंस पढ़ रहा हूँ.